Valley Engineering e-cafe.
Oh.
And you don't have to go very deep here for them. Sort of being kind of hot system. Those are all individual critters. If you look up close, all that white stuff, those are moving creatures.
Dig in.
Oh, yum. So right now, looks like she's digging into a salad. And there's tons of flags coming out. That's good.
What we did is we did layers of food stuff and straw and food and straw and food and straw, and now they've just been throwing all this wet sloppy stuff on top, and we drag all this out, turn it, it's gonna be great, it's gonna get hot. In every one of your cells of every one of your bodies, this little thing called the mitochondria. And in there is an electron transport chain. You eat food to put electrons in. The reason you breathe is for oxygen. The oxygen is electronegative and it pulls the electrons to it from the food. But it goes across an electron transport membrane to do that, which is a series of enzymes or proteins. And then that energy, just from the pull of that electron, the electron being pulled there by oxygen, that pull creates a force, and that force can create a molecule called ATP. And ATP is this molecule that goes everywhere else in the body and builds stuff. And the DNA tells us, hey, put this thing next to that thing and use some energy. And ATP. So ATP is like a molecule. Tighten up. It's locked. It's got energy in it. It can go somewhere and does stuff, right? But that energy originally came from the electrons going to the oxygen. And those electrons are in the carbon-to-carbon bonds of this stuff. All this stuff, this tree and everything, is carbon that came from the atmosphere. It was harvested from the atmosphere. This is mostly made of carbon that came from the atmosphere using the energy of the sun during photosynthesis. And so there's energy contained in the carbon-to-carbon bonds here. And when you eat them, or when the bugs eat them, same thing, we're doing the same thing. We have enzymes that release that energy, and those electrons then go across the electron transport membrane, blah, blah, blah. So that's what's happening here. So this is exactly like a fire. When you burn a fire in a fireplace, you're adding carbon and energy. That's why this stuff burns, right? And when you burn this perfectly, like perfect heat, right amount of oxygen, it turns into CO2, water vapor, and heat. And the heat came from the sun in the form of UV radiation. And the carbon dioxide, carbon came from the carbon-to-carbon bonds. And the water vapor was made during that chemical reaction. It's called oxidation. The exact same chemistry is happening inside of a compost spout. Oxidation. It's like a fire. It literally is like a fire. What does a fire need? It needs oxygen, right? So that's why you stir it, to get oxygen in there. But instead of being an abiotic oxidation reaction, it's a biotic oxidation reaction. And know if you know much about that, but the reason wood burns is that you get it hot enough. If you get it hot enough, it overcomes the activation energy necessary for the oxidation reaction to occur. And so, but then that creates its own heat, which is enough to keep the thing going. That's why a fire keeps burning. Where what bugs do is they have enzymes that lower the activation energy necessary for oxidation reactions to occur. But otherwise, it's exactly the same oxidation chemistry. And that's what happens. So what comes out of a well-built compost pile that has good airflow and water for the enzymes to flow and for the bugs to live in? CO2, water vapor, steam. You saw the steam come out, and then heat. And it's the same thing. And you could heat a house with that heat. You could run a coil through there and heat water with that heat. You could trap that heat. You could do it on a giant scale. We could like turn steam turbines with that heat because it's energy that's slowly going off. That's CO2, water vapor, and heat. And that heat came from energy. What was the original source for that energy?
The sun.
That's it, man. It's all about the sun. It's all about the sun. And the soil is what makes it possible. The soil is a battery. All this soil, this single pinch of the soil right here, a billion living organisms. Billion living organisms in here right now. And what are they doing? They're trying to get the carbon and the energy from this dead stuff. This little bit of leaf material here has carbon and energy that originally came from the atmosphere, and the energy came from the sun. And the bugs are on there, and they're oozing out the enzymes, and they're breaking the bonds, and they're getting the carbon, and they're getting the energy. And that's what we're doing in the compost pile. We're just doing it all together really fast, and we're trying to get this cooked. And what's at the end of the fire, at the end of the night, after you burn wood all night, what's left in there is ash, right? And ash is the rocks, is the leftover minerals. And what we're left over with good compost is concentrated nutrients and minerals. And all the excess CO2 and water vapor and heat are gone. And that's why we add it to soil, because it's food, it's carbon, it's energy. And the soil's a living thing, and we want to feed that. And the more we do that, the more the nutrients are processed. The more the nutrients are processed, the more they're made available again for things to grow, to capture more energy from the sun. That's what we're doing.